Hey there, instructional designers. This is a lecture, mini lecture, mini video lecture, one of those on the Jigsaw Cooperative Learning Model. This is one of two on various cooperative learning models. There's also going to be one on the structured academic controversy model, but this one's on the Jigsaw. So the Jigsaw model by Elliot Aronson was developed in the early 1970s as a way to help students and teachers successfully navigate newly desegregated schools. And if you're in the slides, you can click on this link to Jigsaw Classroom, and it'll give you the full history of the Jigsaw model and the ways in which Professor Aronson and his students conceptualized this model as a way to facilitate positive interdependence between students who hadn't interacted before. So the Jigsaw model is comprised of 7 different steps. So you begin by introducing the jigsaw. You assign heterogeneously grouped students to expert and learning groups. So those groups are going to be composed of, could be, and we'll talk about this in a minute, can be composed of students who are randomly grouped, could be grouped by interest, could be grouped by readiness. So it could be heterogeneously or homogeneously grouped. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Then you explain the task and assemble the expert groups. You allow the expert groups to process information, and then the experts teach their learning group. Then you hold individuals accountable, so maybe there's some sort of graphic organizer that they have to turn in, or some way that you are demonstrating that students are individually accountable. And then you evaluate the jigsaw process. So you ask students to reflect on how the process went, what did they notice, what sorts of things maybe do they want to make sure they're more aware of or focusing on for next time. So this is a model that I think a lot of us have experience with, either in our education classrooms, maybe we've seen it in other classes. It's one that's really easy to modify too. So you could do the expert groups, and then instead of having the experts teach their learning groups, you could have the experts teach the whole group. Or you could do have the experts teach, I'm using air quotes here, by having them create some sort of a poster and then do a gallery walk. And so then the learning groups, or the rest of the class, is learning about what expert groups explored by doing a gallery walk. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can modify the jigsaw as well as its original 7-step process. So had our semester continued as originally planned, we would have engaged in a Jigsaw cooperative learning opportunity to explore those instruction case studies that are at the end of our instruction textbook. So there's a case study for elementary, a case study for middle, and a case study for kindergarten, middle school, and high school. And so we would have gotten in expert groups based on the chapters that we read and the content areas or grade levels we intend to teach. And so we would have been, we would have a kindergarten expert group, a middle school expert group, a high school expert group. They would have had opportunity to process the reading from that case study, from the text, and then they would have gotten together in their jigsaw groups with one individual from the kindergarten group, one individual from the middle school expert group, and one individual from the high school expert group to talk about the themes that they noticed, identify similarities and differences between the ways in which the models are used across grade levels. So that's one way that you might do these to flexibly group for the jigsaw, is by interest in this case. It's also an opportunity to differentiate by readiness. And this is where that idea in step 2 that it's heterogeneously grouped can be modified. Perhaps you have your expert groups studying, I don't know, no, I'm thinking about biomes. I don't know why I'm thinking about biomes. Maybe it's because I wish I was outside. But if they're studying biomes, and maybe you find some leveled readings on like a desert biome, a tundra biome, and a rainforest biome. And maybe you make your desert biome group students who maybe need a little more textual support. So maybe you choose a lower reading level text for that particular group, and then maybe a on grade level text for your tundra group and an above level text for your rainforest group, jungle group. I don't remember what I said before. But anyway, you can also flexibly group by readiness so that all students can interact with their text and the ideas in their expert groups and still be an expert when they get into their jigsaw groups to share their learning. So this is a great strategy for both for flexible grouping, for interest, as well as readiness. So when we think about the 7-step model, one of the things we can think about is in what ways does the Jigsaw model align with the pies of cooperative learning? So there's that article by Kagan from 2011, and he talks about the pies of cooperative learning. The acronym PIES stands for the 4 principles of positive interdependence, individual accountability, equal participation, and simultaneous interaction. So in order for cooperative learning to really be cooperative learning and not simply group work, for example, where people are just in a group working, may or may not be successful, may or may not be positively interdependent on one another, may or may not be individually accountable. I know I've been in a classroom recently where the students in that classroom, when asked about like what does group work, what does working in a group normally look like, and some of them jokingly said one person doing all the work. So when we're doing cooperative learning, we're setting this up such that that's not what's happening. We want to make sure that we are facilitating positive interdependence, that students need each other and each other's information to be successful. That's why they go from expert to jigsaw groups. They can't get all the information just from doing their own reading or their own work. They need the information from others. And when you hold individuals accountable, then there's that individual accountability for them being positively interdependent. They can't turn in their exit ticket unless they've gotten information from other groups. There's also has to be equal participation. So when you split up, and that's why when we adhere to this model as written, when you have students break up and go from being in their expert group, you have to make sure that everyone in the expert group is truly an expert and can teach the folks in the jigsaw or the learning group, because they're not going to have anybody else to rely on when they go to teach their peers. So it requires that everyone help each other, again, be positively interdependent to make sure that everyone has the information they need so that everyone can participate equally and share their information and get the information, and that there's simultaneous interaction. So things are happening at the same time. Folks are interacting with each other. So that's the Jigsaw Cooperative Learning Model. Maybe this is one that you're going to try out. What does simultaneous interaction look like in a remote teaching and learning environment? Interesting question. And I know at least one of you has taken that question on. So I look forward to seeing what you come up with.